Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to Shalom AZ Ministries, House of New Beginnings. If you're joining us for the first time, we'd love to connect. Just drop a note in the chat and tell us where you're watching from. When we gather together each day and each week, our heart's desire is to truly encounter the presence of the King of the universe. Our desire is to meet with Him and to be transformed into the likeness of His character in ever-increasing measure. We want to be like Him and to be transformed so that we can be transformative in the places where He has planted us. That we would be water bottles in the desert, overflowing with the life and refreshing newness that He is pouring into us. Today, as we gather in Yeshua's name, let's remember He's here with us. He sees you, He knows you, and He's working in your life to shape you into His likeness so you can radiate His love wherever you are. Mark your calendars for our next gathering, a special Erev Rosh Hashanah gathering on Monday, September 22nd at 7 p.m. at Chapel of Nelson University, AIC in Phoenix, where we will welcome the Jewish New Year together with the sounding of the shofar and the lifting up of our shofars, our voices, in worship. You won't want to miss this powerful time together in the Lord's presence. Since our desire is that this will be a sweet New Year, after service we will enjoy a time of fellowship, eating apples and honey, and other sweet desserts. Please bring your favorite sweet dish to share. And please bring a friend. If you would, let us know you're coming by registering at shalomaz.com/gather or by scanning the QR code on the screen. It's not required, but it helps us prepare. Of course, if you decide to come last minute, you're still more than welcome. Whether you've been a part of the community for years or this would be your very first time, we'd love to see you there. In addition to joining us for daily manna each day at 10 a.m., we hope you're able to join us for Shabbat service on Saturday at 10:30 Arizona time. Our Torah portion this week is Deuteronomy 11, verse 26 through Deuteronomy 16, verse 17. Our Haftarah portion this week is Isaiah 54, verse 11 through Isaiah 55, verse 5. Our New Covenant reading is John 7, verses 37 through 52. Please download our Shalom AZ app on your phone or streaming device. It's the easiest way to watch services, access devotionals, and share teachings with friends. Just search Shalom AZ in your app store. We want to say thank you to everyone who gives so faithfully. Your generosity is an act of worship to the Lord, and it makes it possible for us to share Yeshua and the richness of His Word with our community and beyond. We couldn't do this without you. As you give, you're not only meeting needs, you're partnering with the Lord to bring life and transformation to countless hearts. We are grateful that as you give to Him, you are entrusting Shalom AZ Ministries to be the faithful stewards of your worship and giving. The easiest way to give is through our app or online at shalomaz.com/give. You can also mail a check to our P.O. Box. As we dive into the Word today, we want to remind you that each daily manna teaching comes with a companion devotional guide. This guide is designed to help you go deeper beyond the live stream, whether in your own personal devotion time or as a resource to help you in ministering to others. You can use it in so many ways, for daily reflection and journaling, as a family devotional around the dinner table, or even to start a simple Bible study during your lunch break with coworkers you're ministering to. No matter how you use it, these devotionals are meant to help you not just hear the Word, but to live it out and share it with others. If the Holy Spirit has put someone on your heart, a neighbor, a friend, a relative, this can be an easy way to invite them into a conversation about Yeshua in a natural, approachable way. You can download today's companion devotional right from our app or our website at shalomaz.com. Thanks for being here. Let's let Yeshua have His way in us today.
All right, so we're in 2 Peter chapter 2. And, the thing when we're dealing here in 2 Peter again is there's language that's being used that that we're not generally accustomed to hearing. There's a tone. There's a harshness that's being used in 2 Peter chapter 2. And the thing that is always important for us to note here is where that harshness is directed. Right? When there are those in the body, those in our midst, among us, who are purporting that they are speaking as from the Lord, but they're doing so in a way that is deceptive, that is wrong, that is off, that is misleading people, then there is an urgency in which things are expressed. There can be a harshness that is expressed, again, not necessarily aimed at the wickedness of the world which is out there. Our purpose, our call as the body of believers is to be transformed and to be transformative, right? We're supposed to be different. The world's going to act like the world. Sinners are going to act like sinners. The issue is when in our midst we're displaying something that is bearing false witness to his name, that is defaming his name, and in that way it hinders the progress of what we're called to do. And when you see that begin to happen, when, again, I can't reiterate this enough, is that when you see Yeshua, the places in which he is harsh, in which he sounds what we would call judgmental, is aimed at those who have been entrusted, to the religious, to those who have been entrusted with the truth. Those who've been entrusted with the word and are twisting the word or misusing the word or using it in a selfish, self-centered way. So when Yeshua in Matthew 23 addresses the Pharisees, addresses the spiritual leadership, those who have influence over the people, and he's saying, boy, you do so much to convert people, and then you make them into twice as much a son of hell as you are. Yeshua says this to them. To those within the believing community, at that point within the Jewish community, those in Jewish leadership. But now when you have those in the body, those are false teachers, and they're misleading people, and they're leading those who are not yet firmly grounded away. This is not some kind of ho-hum deal. This is not the moment at which it's like, where he's like, hey, I'm going to talk real nice to you. No, this is where the harshness comes. And it's reserved for those twisting the reputation of Yeshua. It's an opportunity to awaken. It's an opportunity that when you're confronted with the truth, it's an opportunity to either humble yourself and repent and turn, or double down. Are we going to be like Pharaoh, who gets the opportunity after judgment to humble himself and to respond to the Lord's command, or are we going to harden our hearts and dig in twice as deep? So even when we so that's where it's I find that in the United States, many of those that in our circles, I'll say, because I can't speak for what I experience in other circles, but in the circles in which the people that I have known, people that I've known my whole life, people that have been influential in my life, people that I have led, what I experience often is a tendency to want to be harsh and judgmental in one sense about the wickedness of the world. We can recognize what it is and see what it is. We don't have to. We're not to participate in that wickedness. We're not to affirm it. But but we're perfectly comfortable being harsh there. But when a harsh word comes our way, a word of correction to awaken us, all of a sudden we become super sensitive. We're like, I'm tired of politically correct, and where we don't want to care enough about communicating things in a gentle way. Political correctness to me is just saying, let me see if I can communicate this in a way so that it can be received. So I'm going to craft my language. I'm going to work with the words that I use. I'm going to be, because I care about the recipient, because I'm not trying to win an argument. I'm trying to win a person. But what I find is that so many of us want to be careless with our words because we just don't want to take the time to deal with how this will impact the recipient of what we're saying. But the moment it comes at us, the moment a harsh rebuke comes our way, people go, boy, aren't you judgmental? Who do you think you are? The very ones who are out there judging. Okay, so you have, as we look at what Peter is addressing here, he's saying there were false prophets then, and there are going to be false teachers among us. He says they're among us, number one. He said there's not among us. There's a stealthiness. They're in our midst. And they're introducing opinions that are destructive. Heresies, but it's the idea of opinions that are destructive. And what they're doing is actually rebellion. They are in the very things that they're teaching, in what they're purporting, and what they are rejecting the master who bought them. So everything about, and what we'll see, everything that characterizes what they're teaching, what they're walking in, and the manner is a repudiation of Yeshua. It's a repudiation of everything that Yeshua is about, because Yeshua humbled himself, didn't exalt himself. Yeshua poured out, he didn't grasp and take. So when we are operating and then teaching in ways that are contradictory to everything Yeshua was about, then that in itself is a rebellion against his ways. It's saying my way is better, and it's a repudiation of his ways. It's a rejection when he says, if you deny me before the Father, I'll deny you, or you deny me before men, I'll deny you before the Father. That's that kind. If you repudiate me, and so what they're doing is that kind of denial of the very one who bought them, and the result is in their destructive opinions and their destructive teachings, they're bringing about their own destruction. They're popular, right? It says they're leading many away, and many are following away after them. And so instead of the word for follow is the word for to be discipled, but they're being unfollowed. Yeshua's being unfollowed, and they're being followed. They're leading people away, and there's a lot of them. I mean, they're popular. There are many being led away. The impact of their teaching is blasphemy, right? It's a blasphemy against the truth of the way, or the way of truth. It's a blasphemy, which means literally speaking damage, or speaking so as to mislead. That's what blasphemy is. It's a speaking of damage, or speaking as to mislead against the way of truth. They're motivated, we saw, by their greed. And what they're selling you, what they're trading you, how they're important, their pretense, their logos, their words, their logos are plastic, basically. They're fabricated, they're formed. They're not real. It's all, what they're selling you isn't the real deal. It's not living, it's plastic, it's formed, it's fabricated. So we come to find later that they're saying Yeshua is not returning. There won't be any judgment. There won't be any accountability. So as far as they're concerned, the idea of Yeshua's return are just clever myths that are coming from Peter and the apostles. And if Yeshua isn't returning, if there's no consequences, no accountability, they're saying, where is his coming? Where is his judgment? And so what can happen is when consequences are slow in coming, when people sin against the Lord and they seem to get away with it, they can misinterpret what's happening. They think either, like they sin, and they know at first, wait, I don't think this is what the Lord wants, and there's no consequence. So they think either the Lord isn't paying attention, or they think, well, maybe this isn't really sin, maybe this is okay. Or they come to the conclusion, maybe there is no God. And as they continue to walk in sin, they go, you know what, this isn't real. I'm not facing any consequences. So they become bolder, they become brasher, thinking that they're not going to fall, and they misunderstand the Lord's patience with them. I'll give you an example kind of on a much smaller scale and a less consequential scale. If I would tell my kids, okay, you can play video games for an hour, but after that you need to finish your schoolwork or you need to clean your room or whatever. And they begin, and they're playing, and an hour goes by. And I don't come in and say, okay, time to stop. I've already told them when they need to stop. I don't come in and say, time to stop. And they just keep playing. And because they're waiting for me to come they're waiting for me to come tell them. And then they'll continue playing, and now it's been an hour and a half, and now they know. Oh, it's over an hour. And they're like, how long can I get away with? 2 hours. Now they know. And when I finally come in and say, what in the world? An hour and a half ago, I told you were supposed to be done and cleaning your room. Well, you never came in and said anything. I told you in advance. I entrusted you with what you were supposed to do. And the longer I waited, the more you thought, oh, I guess this isn't a big deal. I guess Dad's okay with it. He's not saying anything, so I guess he's okay with it. We assumed you were fine with it. No, I had already told you in advance it wasn't fine. Or maybe Dad's not coming at all. Maybe he's not coming back to check on us, and I'll just keep doing what I want to do. And that's sort of what ends up, you see throughout, where God is actually slow in he's patient, not wanting any to perish. He's giving us an opportunity to actually respond to what he has said without having to come in constantly and say, and bring consequence after consequence. He's giving us an opportunity to turn to him. So these false teachers are suggesting that no judgment is coming. It seems to be delayed, but it's not been delayed. It's not slumbering. It's not getting caught in a blink, where so they're like, where's the promise of this coming? So Peter gave 3 examples because they said, where's the promise of this coming? Everything goes on just as it did from the beginning. He gives 3 examples of what's been going on from the beginning. If the angels who sinned weren't spared, if the ancient world wasn't spared from cataclysm from the flood, only a few were, 8 in all. If they weren't, if Sodom and Gomorrah wasn't, they weren't spared except for Lot and a handful, then you can see that there is an eventuality to judgment. That's what's been going on from the beginning. And so the Lord knows. He knows how to rescue the godly from testing, and he knows how to keep the unrighteous for punishment in the day of judgment. So those are the 2 things that he says. And so now he goes into greater detail in verse 10 about the false teachers. Verse 10, it says, and especially he knows how to hold the ones for judgment. He says, and especially the ones going after the flesh in a craving for defilement and with a mind or with an attitude that's against the Lord's authority. In the TLV, it says, especially those who follow after the flesh in its unclean desires and who despise the Lord's authority. So that's where we kind of ended yesterday. And so now he's going to give he's giving these reasons for the judgment that he spoke of. And so in addition to the greed, right? Greed was mentioned in verse 3. Now he mentions basically the sexual sin or the going after the flesh in a craving as they're hungering for the uncleanness, for the defilement. And third, this rebellious arrogance that they have, this rejection of the Lord's authority and of their own lifting of themselves. Those are the 3 things: their greed, their sensuality, or their giving into their cravings, and then the rebellious arrogance. And so those 3 things he's going to address sort of in reverse order. He mentioned greed and then sexuality, sexual sin and rebellious arrogance. And so now he's going to deal with rebellious arrogance, the sexual sin, and the greed. So he says, brazen and arrogant. These people do not tremble while slandering glorious beings, while blaspheming. It uses again that word, while speaking damage against the glorious, the glories. It doesn't actually say beings. It says it says they do not tremble. It says, first of all, it says they're audacious. It gives these 2 words. They're audacious and arrogant. The first word, audacious, is or it can mean like adventurous or risky, but not in a positive way, right? It's like a foolish riskiness. It's a stupid riskiness, and it's rooted. So these two things are connected. They're risky because they're arrogant. They're not walking in wisdom. They're audacious and arrogant. It's not an admirable arrogance. It's rooted in their admirable adventurousness. It's rooted in their arrogance. And their arrogance is manifested in the fact that they're not afraid to slander, it says, the glories, doxis. They're not afraid. They don't tremble to blaspheme the glories, the glorious ones. Now, what glorious ones is it talking about? Well, we get a little clearer picture in verse 11. It says, whereas even angels, though stronger and more powerful, do not bring it uses the word blasphemous again, or slanderous, to speak against, do not bring a slanderous charge against them before the Lord. So what you're dealing with, what glories are they slandering? What glorious ones are they slandering? Well, they're in some versions it'll say they slander glorious beings or celestial beings, and the idea is they're speaking against even the evil angels. And here's where we get that idea. There's basically Jude's letter, which is just a one chapter letter, is in many ways it is almost a parallel to this chapter. Much of Jude is a parallel to 2 Peter 2. And so you see in Jude 8 and 9, verse Jude, because there's one chapter, it's not Jude 1, it's just Jude verse 8. It says, yet in the same way these people also by their visionary dreaming defile the flesh, reject the Lord's authority, it's using the same language, and defame glorious beings, doxis. So it's doxas, it's the same thing. And the example is given in verse 9. But when Michael, the archangel, disputing with the devil, was arguing about the body of Moses, he did not dare to render a judgment against him for slander, but said, may the Lord rebuke you. Okay, so now this is drawing upon, Peter's drawing upon a intertestamental book in Jewish tradition called The Assumption of Moses. And he's using it as an example, like you guys, of something that they would have been familiar with, saying, hey, even the good angels, even though when against the enemy, didn't take authority out of place. They said the Lord rebuke you. They understood what their place was. But Jude, the connection between Peter and Jude seems to make this explicit contrast between the good angels and the fallen angels, and that seems to be what Peter is doing as well, saying the good angels didn't even bring a defaming judgment, a blasphemous charge or judgment against them before the Lord. They basically said, I give it to the Lord. The Lord can rebuke you. The Lord is going to do it. So what's the point here? What's the point? What exactly is the point that Peter's making regarding these false teachers? Well, what's being expressed is an arrogance that is audacious or risky, to say the least. That they are mouthing things, they are uttering things concerning glorious things, concerning that which they don't understand, concerning, they're taking authority that is not theirs to take. In a way, and they're doing it in a way that, in contrast, it says even angels who in their very existence, the language here, angels strong and powerful, existing in greatness, it uses the word ontas, like you're ontological, like in their very being, they are great. They are strong and mighty. Even angels whose existence is great and mighty, and powerful, they don't dare to speak with such presumption. Even they don't do this. You're expressing a level, these teachers they're audacious and arrogant, and that's the issue here. We can go into the questions about what's going on and the way that you deal with the celestial beings, as some in speaking about them, but the issue is the posture of their heart, the exaltation of their heart, a level of arrogance that is terrifying, that is risky. Now, I'm going to give you some ideas of what different scholars say. It seems that they are even making light of the evil angels, of the called the glories, the glorious ones. They're being called glorious not because they're good, but simply because they were created by God himself, and they subsequently fell into sin, but they were still considered, they're beyond us. So, since the false teachers seem to be materialistic and thus skeptical about things like the return of Messiah and the judgment to come, the blasphemy may have taken a very basic form and involved a general denial of the existence of such things. Perhaps the teachers did not tremble before them because they didn't believe in their existence, which again would fit well with their skeptical worldview about the coming of Yeshua. They think it's all just a bunch of mythology. They may have ridiculed any idea that we should be concerned about spiritual beings. Again, the issue is there's a contrast here, that even angels, the good angels, didn't declare God's judgment against them, against the evil angels. They left it with the Lord. And yet these are exalting themselves with a level of arrogance that is, they're operating with an arrogance in which they are dangerously out of their depths. Peter lays out the image of a group, not afraid to engage in controversy that borders on the insane. Like, even angels aren't going to do what you're doing, what these guys are doing. They're not afraid to blaspheme. So given their arrogance and their self-indulgence, they're not paying attention to what anyone else would say. They are their own gods, so to speak. They display no caution, and so they are heading headlong toward their own judgment. Verse 12 says, "But these people are like irrational animals." And the language used here is aloga, without word, and the word zoa, like zoology, like zoo, like creatures, living things, without rationality, without word, without understanding. And then it says creatures of instinct, born to be captured and killed. So the creatures of instinct, when we remember in chapter 1, in verse 4, chapter 1, verse 4, Peter said that we have everything that we need, and we're to be have been begotten as partakers of the divine nature. That word nature is the word phusika, or physica, like physical, like your instinct. It's your physicality, but your instinct, your nature. We are partakers in fellowship with God's nature, with his nature. We are partaking of that. These guys, they have been begotten, it says here, they have been begotten of the nature like animals, operating in like animals. These things without reason, have been born of a nature to be captured and destroyed. So he's comparing them to animals. In the things of which they have no understanding, they blaspheme. In their own corruption, or in their own destruction, they'll also be destroyed. So he talks about how animals, he makes the comparison to animals, because animals behave like animals. They operate just according to what they are hungry for in the moment, according to instinct. They're not reasoning, they're not thinking, animals are operating according to instinct. And what these folks are doing is pursuing the cravings of their flesh. They're pursuing their instincts and disregarding, and it's rooted in an arrogance. And you have this, when you see it in Greek, you have this one word that's used over and over again, 3 times in this verse. That's the word for destruction. Excuse me, I feel like I'm about to sneeze. A word for destruction, and it's phthoron. Phthoron. That's always a fun. It's got a theta and a theta right back to back. Phthoron. So it says like animals that are hunted and phthauron and destroyed. Basically, in their own phthauron, their destruction, or it can be their corruption, they are being destroyed, or they will be destroyed. If they continue in this destruction, they're going to be destroyed. And again, there's a lot of parallel between, if you look at the Jude's letter, between this chapter and Jude. Verse 13, we keep rolling here. They will be paid back for what they have done, evil for evil, which is, it's actually, in Greek, it's just 3 words. It says, basically, adikumenoi, which is for unrighteousness or injustice, will be their wages. With unrighteous or unjust wages, they will get for adikias, for injustice. So the idea would be unrighteousness, they'll be paid for their unrighteousness. Like they're going to get back so you will reap what you sow. This is what they've pursued. This is what and we'll see by the time we get to the end, that the one they are following after loved unrighteousness, and they love unrighteousness. So it says they will be paid back for what they've done, evil for evil. They count it carousing in broad daylight a pleasure. They are blots and blemishes, reveling in their deceitful pleasures, reveling in their deceitful pleasures while feasting together with you. And the way when I look through it, the translation, when I'm kind of going in order in like a literal way, it would say this. It'd say, unrighteousness, they will be paid for unrighteousness. Pleasure, they count, like in the word for pleasure there is like hedonin, which is like hedonism. Pleasure, they count it, that which in the daytime is an indulgence. And the word for indulgence comes to do with, it's kind of a pejorative way of looking at freedom, like where they're just having freedom without any restraint. An indulgence that stains and disgraces. So I don't see as much as they are being called blots and blemishes, but that they are engaging in an indulgence that blots and blemishes, that stains and disgraces. Indulging in that which is of their own deceptions while feasting with you. So what you've got here is at the same time, again, they're in your midst, feasting with you while walking in sensuality, while just walking in their own deceptions, all at the same time being in your midst. In broad daylight, they're doing these things. Verse 14, they have eyes full of adultery that never stop sinning, enticing unstable souls. They have hearts trained in greed, a cursed brood. So, first of all, it says they have eyes that are abounding in adultery. Everywhere they look, they are just after the cravings of their flesh. And again, it is a sexual adultery, but it's more than that, because it is an unfaithfulness to God. So what you've got, when you're dealing with pleasure and sensuality and even that pursuing the cravings of your flesh, those cravings include sexuality, but they're not limited to that. There is a hungering after whatever, after power, after money, after greed, after pleasure. It's just a pursuit of, it's me firstness. It's self to the highest degree. And again, up to this point, what Peter has been describing has been mostly about their that sort of their wickedness, their sensuality, their cravings after the flesh, their moral failings, you could say. But now he talks about the issue. The primary issue is their influence on others. They're seducing what he calls unstable souls, and they're unstable in that they're not strong, they're not yet grounded, they're not yet rooted. It's the word is asterictus. We saw the A at the beginning is sort of an anti, they're not strong, they're not stable. In chapter 1, verse 12, he had said, I intend to keep reminding you of these things, even though you know them, and you are well grounded. And that's the word in the positive, esterigmenus. You are well grounded. Well, they are enticing those who are not well grounded, those who are not deeply rooted. So that's where the danger is. They are leading many astray. And then it says they have a heart that trains in greed. And the word for trains is the word we have for gymnasium. And the word for gymnasium starts with the word for naked. Okay, so because gymnasiums, apparently they trained naked back in those days. So there's sort of naked in their hearts are in one sense, there's naked greed, just unrestrained greed, uncovered greed. But it's also their training in greed. Their hearts are absolutely like in peak physical condition when it comes to greed. So they have a heart that trains or nakedly trains in greed. And again, greed is a broad term. It doesn't necessarily mean only monetary greed, but it includes that. But it can just be greed for whatever you want. It's an insatiability. And then it says they're children of the curse. And again, when you look at Jude, because there are so many close parallels, I'm going to kind of zoom through. I'm not going to read Jude, but you can see where in Jude it says they've gone the way of Cain. So when you talk about children of a curse, it says an accursed brood, which is a weird way to... It says cursed... It says children of a curse. The word is tekna, which is children, not brood. Anyway, so verse 15. They have abandoned the straight way. They have gone astray. They have followed the way of Balaam, son of Beor, who loved the wages of wickedness or of unrighteousness. So you'll remember just a couple verses earlier, he talked about they will be given the wages of unrighteousness for unrighteousness. It says, man, Balaam loved the payout of unrighteousness at first. He loved the wages of wickedness. And so there's reference here, obviously, to Balaam, which we read about Balaam in Numbers 22 to 24. It says here that they've, and in that story, king of Balak he had heard about what the Israelites had been conquering others, and he sees they're coming his way. And so he goes and he sends to hire Balaam. Balaam we know he's a prophet who speaks to the Lord. He hears from the Lord. And it uses the name of the Lord. It uses the Hebrew name, Yod-He-Vav-He, uses the name of the Lord. And they go and they want to hire Balaam to curse the children of Israel. And Balaam goes, I can't do it, but he wants to. He desires to. There's a price. And what you see in that is his desire. He wants the wages of wickedness, the wages of unrighteousness. And so, anyway, after he consults God about what he should do, he's still inclined to go his own way. And so the Lord said, do what you're going to do. But meanwhile, there's an angel that's ready to kill him along the way. And so the angel of the Lord was there to block his path. It's interesting here that in Greek, because it says Balaam, son of Beor, but in Greek it uses the word bosor. It says Balaam, son of Bosor, which it's actually a play on words, because the Hebrew word for basar is flesh. So it's more like Peter is making a play on words, Balaam, and he's saying he's a son of the flesh. In using a Hebrew parallelism there, but he's saying he's a son of the flesh, kind of naming him after what the character that he walks in. And it says here he loved the wages of unrighteousness. This was he loved the wages of this path. And let me back up. It says they have forsaken the straight way. They have been led astray, these false teachers, and they have followed out. And remember, the akolutheo is to follow, and this is ex akolutheo. And they have been undiscipled. They have walked away. They have followed away after the way of Balaam. So they're not going the way of Yeshua. They're not going the way of the Lord. They've followed away the way of Balaam that feeds the flesh, that gives them what they desire. And so in verse 16, Balaam, but he received a rebuke for his own wrongdoing. A dumb donkey, a donkey without words, it says, with a man's voice spoke and put a stop to the prophet's madness or his insanity. And so now you get that connection made between, remember he said they're like irrational animals, creatures of instinct, and here an irrational animal was able to bring a rebuke to Balaam. So these guys, as smart as they think they are, as much as they think they know, they are in ignorance. In their ignorance and what they don't understand, they're walking in an arrogance, and it's not an ignorance that means like, well, they don't know. No, it's an ignorance they're choosing. They're closing their eyes to what they don't want to see. They're not hearing what they don't want to hear. The truth is available to them. And the rest of 2 Peter is going to deal with that. The fact is they've been given understanding of the truth, and they've rejected it, and they've abandoned it. And so as I close this up, what you see here is these false prophets are characterized. These false teachers, what is the character they're displaying? Arrogance, running after their cravings, and greed. All things which are in direct contradiction to the character of Yeshua, who was not arrogant, the one who was above all humbled himself. He's the one, it's to him, to his way that we were called. But these guys are leading in a different way. Yeshua said, if anyone would come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. And these are following away after a not denial of self, after a feeding of their flesh. And again, it's not simply sexual feeding. It's whatever they want, making justification for it, and leading many astray. And then they're characterized by their greed, by wanting more and more. Their heart is trained in greed. This is in your midst, he said. In the midst, all the while they're feasting with you. All the while they're in your midst, among you, giving opinions, all of this stuff that are leading the weak away, and they're destructive. And that's going to bring about their own destruction. And in many ways, even when he points to Balaam, he shows that Balaam had an opportunity to turn from his way of destruction. He received a rebuke, and this is a rebuke to those false teachers. And this is an awakening to God's people, not to follow after this way. This is destructive and is leading to destruction, and don't follow them. And the heart of it, as harsh as it is a rebuke that if you respond to rebuke, if you respond with a heart of humility, there's healing, there's wholeness. When you respond with arrogance to the rebuke, when you double down, you're just setting yourself up for the destruction that apparently you're running after. And that's, I think, the devastating, terrifying thing, not to belabor the point that we see in the American church today, is what's been blended into the gospel is a gospel of wealth, a gospel of you can have what you want. I mean, you have a couple of different extremes. You know, you have some in the church who are basically giving license to all kinds of sexual immorality and saying it's fine and God's good with it, and he's not. And he's not. And then there are some that don't seem to have, well, at first glance, it doesn't seem like they have any problem with it. But it's all connected. What do we see year after year, decade after decade? Are those who get arrogant and exalted, and they're filling their coffers, and there's a greed that there is somewhere hidden away, almost always, sexual immorality. It happened that as they feed their pleasures and they justify it and they're getting everything they want and they begin to have to feed themselves as their egos are fed, they think they can have all of this and that they're still good with God. And since they almost seem to be blessed by it, either God doesn't exist or he's good with them, or they exalt themselves. It's a terrifying, destructive path. And that's where we are not to go after them, not to run after them, not to listen to them, but to pray for them, to pray that they will be silenced and that they will be repentant, and so that they wouldn't lead others astray. But we as God's people can't be characterized by this stuff, by arrogance, by running after our cravings, and by greed. We're supposed to be characterized by what characterizes Yeshua, and to be increasing in these things. Remember in chapter 1, if these are yours, faith and virtue and pursuit of knowing the Lord and self-control, perseverance, fear of the Lord, love for one another, if these are yours and increasing, then you won't be unfruitful. Then you're not lazy in your faith. The one who isn't growing in these things has forgotten. He's oblivious. And he's closed his eyes. He's blind because he's closed his eyes, and he's become oblivious to the one who cleansed him from his sins. And what we'll see tomorrow is that it's worse for him than when he first began, because he knows the truth and he's rejected it. And that's a terrifying thing. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom, shalom. Have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for joining us for Daily Manna today. May the work that the Holy Spirit has stirred in your heart today overflow from you to the lives of those you encounter. May Yeshua's love bubble forth from you to your family and your friends and your co-workers, even and especially the people who might be unkind to you. Let's be life-giving water bottles in the land that is dry and weary, where there has been no water. Please don't forget to download our Shalom AZ app on your phone or streaming device. It's the easiest way to watch services, access devotionals, and share teachings with friends and family. Just search Shalom AZ in your app store.
Don't forget to mark your calendars for our special Rosh Hashanah gathering on Monday, September 22nd at 7 p.m. at the Chapel of Nelson University, AIC in Phoenix.
And again, if you've been blessed by Shalom AZ Ministries but haven't yet taken that step to give, would you prayerfully consider sowing into what God is doing here? Your giving is instrumental, helping us live stream services, create devotionals, and reach people who are hungry for truth and hope. As you give, you're not only meeting needs, you are partnering with the Lord to give life and transformation to countless hearts. We're grateful that as you give to Him, you're entrusting Shalom AZ Ministries to be faithful stewards of your worship and giving. Again, the easiest way to give is through our app or online at shalomaz.com/give. You can also mail a check to our P.O. Box. And remember, please join us for Daily Manna, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Arizona time. If you can't join us live, that's okay. The food is still hot and ready for you. Together, let's be built on the richness of God's Word at work in our lives by the power of His Spirit. Thanks again for being here. Let's let Yeshua have His way in us as we go forward to serve Him wholeheartedly.